Matthew chapter 8, beginning with verse 5. Notice here the word of the Lord for today. Now when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, pleading with him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed, dreadfully tormented. And Jesus said to him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. And when Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to those who followed, assuredly I say to you, I've not found such great faith, not even in Israel. And look at verse 13. And then Jesus said to the centurion, go your way, and as you have believed, so let it be done for you. And his servant was healed that same hour. This is part 2 of Who's Got the Remote? Because here Jesus now is able to bring healing to somebody when he's in one place and they're in another, and he doesn't physically have to go because he's got a hold of somebody. He has finally met somebody that says, you don't have to physically come here, you can send your word. And the only reason that this man had this understanding was not merely because he had great faith, but I believe it was because he had great understanding. He understood the power of authority and how authority works. Authority is a different thing. You don't have to be there. You can send your word. Your word is the thing that has authority. And so he said, I'm also a man of authority. He was a centurion. Say centurion. Centurion. You hear the word century there, which is 100. A centurion generally had charge of at least 100 people under his care and supervision. And notice that this man said that he was a man under authority. Most folks get the big head and they say, I'm the man in authority. But he was not stuck on being in authority. He was submitted under authority. He said, I'm a man under authority. I understand what it is to be under authority because he understood that the authority that was given him had been extended by another and that he was still accountable to the one who gave him authority. And so he said, I've got folks under me, and I say to one, come, and he comes. And I say to another, go, and he goes. And I say to another, do this, and he does it. And I don't have to run behind them because my word has authority. And so he says, Jesus, you don't even have to come because I know you also are a man of authority. And what really helps us to understand authority is what a police officer has. If a police is standing out there directing traffic, he's in a uniform, but what gives him his authority is not merely his uniform, but it is his badge. If a police comes to the door, somebody impersonating an officer, they need to have a legitimate police badge. It is their badge of authority. They have two things that the Bible talks about in Luke chapter 10 and verse 19. Jesus said, behold, I give unto you authority to tread upon all of the power of the enemy, to tread upon scorpions and serpents and over all of the power of the enemy. I give you authority. He used the word, the Greek word there is the word exousia, authority to trample on all of the dunamis power of the devil. Now the badge of authority, that authority, your badge is your authority. But now, how many of you know not everybody always respects the badge of authority? And there are some people that only understand dunamis power. The dunamis power is the pistol that he carries on his hip. And so when the police officer is standing out directing traffic, and if you see somebody just coming at you, you better reach for your dunamis. Because not everybody respects the badge. But when there is a proper respect for the exousia, this is what Jesus marveled at seeing, that this man had an understanding of authority and the respect for the exousia to the degree that he didn't need to see the dunamis. It was his way of saying that I believe it without even seeing it. He was saying, you know, I believe, Jesus, that you've been raised from the dead. I don't have to put my hands in your side and in the prints in your hand. I don't even have to do that. I believe, and Jesus said, blessed are those that believe yet have not seen. This is exactly the way the man was who was the centurion. He said, speak the word only. You don't have to come to my house. Send the authority of your word only. You don't have to even come there. You see, the Bible talks about it. It had already talked about it in the Old Testament, Psalm 107 and verse 20. He sent his word and healed them and delivered them from their destructions. You see, St. John chapter 1 and verse 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It is the Greek word logos, L-O-G-O-S. It is the written word. There is a power in the word, the written word and the spoken word. And there are things that really don't even matter unless it's in writing. There's certain things that you've got to see it in writing. I loved it from the Ten Commandments when Moses had done some things and he had really proven loyalty to his native Hebrew people. And then the Pharaoh, as Moses had been raised in his house, who had been favored by the Pharaoh, said, let the name of Moses be stricken from every tablet and hamlet. Let the name of Moses not be spoken. And then I love the way that he finished it. So let it be written, so let it be done. So let it be written, so let it be done. And you have to be able to come to that place in your life where you will let it be written, so let it be done. Come on, I know you want to say it. Say it with me. Oh, I could see it in you. Come on, say it. So let it be written, so let it be done. There are certain things that you need to just write down. May I tell you that the top achievers in this country, the top 3% of the achievers in America had one thing in common. They all had written goals. Are you listening to me? They all had written goals. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. You need to write it down for accuracy. You need to write it down for memorability. That's why the Bible says, write the vision. Write the vision and make it plain. Write the vision and make it plain. If you want something to happen, do you want it to happen bad enough for you to write it down? It's interesting. Remember that this remote control, I'm just absolutely amazed. I was in a high-tech room in New York, and the remote that was beside my bed not only controlled the television, I also could control the DVD player. It also controlled the lighting in the room. Not only could I control the lighting, I also was able to control the temperature. I could make it colder or hotter, all from a remote control. I was controlling the atmosphere. May I tell you that you have the ability to even control your atmosphere right from where you are remotely? You don't always have to go there in person. You can just control the atmosphere. May I tell you that God has called us to be a thermostat and not a thermometer? A thermometer always adjusts to the temperature around it. But a thermostat always determines the temperature. You set the thermostat, and it might be cold in the house when you set the thermostat. But then the thermostat begins to call for some other things around it to happen. And I'm just here to tell you that God has not called us to be thermometers. He's called us to be thermostats. You live in a cold environment, you need to set it. You set the thermostat for the temperature that's supposed to be around you. You ought to be able to set the thermostat of the atmosphere in terms of saying, I'm going to live in a thankful atmosphere. And one way to live in a thankful atmosphere is to come in and start giving thanks yourself. If you want to change an atmosphere, may I tell you how I change atmosphere? Sometimes I've come into a negative atmosphere. Sometimes I've gone to visit people in the hospital, and it's a negative atmosphere. You know what most people are prone to say when they walk into a hospital room? How you doing? You're in the hospital. If you were well, you wouldn't be there. Hello. So the last thing that I want to ask is, how you doing? I don't want to set them up to pull my spirit down, and I don't want them focusing on what's wrong with them. So I've already got a different approach the moment that I walk in there, and I've had to catch myself because it's autopilot and say, hey, how you doing? But I don't want to know how they're doing. I'll walk in and tell them, you look better than I imagined. I'll walk in and I will say something because I don't want to set up the atmosphere for them to start complaining and telling me about how bad the situation is. And so I will set the atmosphere. You're not going to have me to come and visit anybody and then you feel worse after I leave. If that happens, I am not true to who God called me to be. I'm a thermostat. The atmosphere ought to change if I'm there. I want to give you 5 things that give us remote control. Weapons give us remote control. Weapons. Because a weapon gives you the ability to be in one place and yet have a target in another. Without even touching a person, if you have a weapon, you can say to them, don't move. And that person will remain in place. Did you know the Bible talks about it in Psalm 127, verse 4 and 5? It talks about how blessed is the man who has his quiver full with children, because children are like arrows. Arrows are a modern day system of a gun. In that day, it was a bow and arrow. It was an arrow. So it was a way of being able to be here and have a target there. And you could stay in your place and you could release an arrow. You could release one of your children. Your children can become your weapons. And they are your arrows. They give you the ability of sending them while you stay here. So weapons give us the ability to do that. But the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. Oh my God, you're getting it. You realize that God has given you weapons to be able to cast down imaginations and vain philosophies and all kinds of evil voices that are speaking to you, telling you negative things about yourself, that nobody loves you, that nobody's ever going to want you, that you're never going to amount to anything, and that it's going to fail. But listen, you got to turn the station. You got the remote. Remember, you got the remote. You got a weapon. God has given you a weapon in your hand. It may not look like a weapon, but it's a weapon nonetheless. God has given us weapons. Weapons give us remote control. And sometimes people don't even see the real weapons that you have because you got to go into your secret closet. We've got heavy artillery. You better be surprised that God has given us heavy artillery to deal with spiritual warfare and spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. He's given us weapons to be able to control situations. So your weapons will give you remote control. Number 2, your convictions. Convictions give us remote control. We live our life based on convictions. Convictions govern our life. You can have a child, and you've raised up and you've tried to teach them the right thing, and when they leave your home, they're not going to live by what you say. They will live by the convictions that are in their heart. So convictions have an ability to govern us. We used to have an invisible fence so that when our dogs were out in the yard, they couldn't see the boundaries. They knew where the boundaries were, but they couldn't see it. And when they would go out of the bounds, or actually 5 feet before they got there, they would begin to they'd hear a noise, letting them know if you don't get back, you're getting ready to get a shock. Things will come to you as a shock. And sometimes they would ignore the warning beat that they would get. And they would walk further, and the collar around their neck would then shock them because they were going out of bounds. And did you know that God actually has a leash on us? Well, He's controlling your children, your spouse. They can only go so far to the left and right. There's a collar on them. When you're praying for them, there is a collar on them. They can only go so far to the left and to the right before they don't even see the fence. But when you pray, God, be a fence all around me. Be a fence around my children. You go to a certain place and all of a sudden they get a shock. The way He's bringing them back to a place where they realize I'm out of bounds now and I'm not happy anymore. And I feel like I'm about to kill myself. See, they'll feel that they're killing themselves by the shock that they're getting. And it'll teach them where the boundary lines are in their life, but you've got to be able to have some things even when you can't see them, and those are our convictions that actually shock us back. And your convictions are based on principles in your life, and when you live your life by principles, 99% of your decisions are already made. But they are the convictions. We don't live our beliefs, we live our convictions. We live our convictions. We live our convictions. There are certain things that we just don't do. The only reason that we don't do them is because we have a conviction against it. We live our convictions. Your convictions give you remote control. When you set convictions in the hearts of your children, those convictions will govern them. If there's a conviction in your spouse, the conviction is the thing that will govern them. Convictions. We always obey the convictions of our heart. Number 3, what gives us remote control is technology. Technology, computers, telephones, surveillance equipment, all kinds of things. They give us the ability to control things remotely. And you see, I didn't realize how much stuff is controlled remotely until I was having trouble with our internet service. I called a cable company. I said, listen, we're having a problem with the internet. And they said, let me reset some things here. And they pushed some buttons and they said, try it now. I tried it and it worked. I'm like, they didn't even have to send the person out. It was by remote control. I've discovered that they can actually shut your utilities off without having to come out to the house anymore. And then they charge you a reconnection fee when all they did was press a button. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Lift your hand real, just up real. Somebody that's ever had their utilities turned off and they don't even have to come to your house anymore. They push a button and you're in the dark. Remote control, technology, remote control. Remote control. You pull up to the house and press a button to remotely open the garage door. You'd be surprised how you can press buttons and God will open doors for you remotely. You don't even have to be out. There's certain things that God will allow to happen remotely for you. You don't even have to be there. God will have favor working on your behalf. When you really learn how to pray, I declare to you, there are some things that will happen in the kingdom of God and in the economy of God. Doors will open for you, and you didn't even have to get out and open the door because of remote control, So technology, number 3 is technology. Number 4 are words. Spoken words and written words. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those that love it will eat the fruit thereof. And so we have to realize that words give us remote control. The next is thoughts. Number 5 is thoughts. Have you ever been thinking about a person and then later that day they call you? Folks that you hadn't thought about sometimes in months or even years. And then all of a sudden out of the clear blue they call you. The person had been on your mind and all of a sudden the next day they call you. Isn't that amazing how thoughts have power? May I say this to you? It's not what you are that hinders you, it's what you think that you are not. Thoughts have power. It's not what you are that hinders you, it's what you think you are not. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Proverbs chapter 23 and verse 7. May I tell you another thing? Can I give you a bonus of another thing that gives us remote control? Actions. If you don't like the way you feel, change your action. Because feelings follow actions. There are a lot of times that I don't feel like working out, but after I work out, I feel great. And if I let my feeling dominate me, I would have gone home and gotten into bed. But because I did an action, I control my feeling. Now, if you don't believe that feelings follow actions, I had somebody that, I was trying to teach that principle to them. I said, how you feel? They said, I feel good. Then I slapped them. I said, how you feel now? They're like, what'd you do that for? And I just said, I just want to illustrate to you, feelings follow actions. When I did the action, feeling followed. Their whole attitude changed. If you ever change your actions, you can change your feelings. Just your actions. May I tell you, see, back in the day, I like some of my folks with gray hair who's turned gray or either hair who has turned loose. They will remember this. Like if you were in church and cutting up, without even saying anything to you, your mama could look over at you and the action of her eyes, she could squint them a little bit and say, if you don't sit yourself down, I will skin you alive, I will kill you. She was having a whole conversation, didn't even move, but the action of her eyes. Some folks' eyes, they can look at you and say, don't even try it. Say, do it again and you're a dead man. Just the action of their eyes, just the action. You can do, you see, an action is a signal. You can just do that, and that means stop it. No further. Remember we talked about exousia authority? Well, the policeman will say stop in the name of the law. But to us who are Christians, we have exousia authority that has been given to us by Jesus Christ. And you stop in the name of the Lord. Stop in the name of the Lord. May I tell you this? That you have been commissioned with delegated authority. Here's the other bonus. Delegated authority. You got remote control through delegated authority. Jesus said, these signs shall follow them that believe. Because he said, because I go to my Father, I'm going to now I'm going to delegate to you the authority that I have been operating in the earth realm with. I've been healing, but now I'm going to give unto you. He says, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. And then before he left the earth, he gave the power to the church because he knew that he didn't need to take that power back to heaven because there are no demons there. The anointing is to break yokes and to undo burdens. And so he said, I'm relegating, in my name, you'll cast out devils. In my name, if you take up any deadly thing, it shall not hurt you. In my name, you'll lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. He gave us delegated authority, where if you just believe it by the word, because Jesus said it, just one word from God can change your life.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.